Welcome everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry about the late start tonight. I had a late start. I had some things going on. I just want to say hello. I just want to say welcome. I just want to say all day long. Uh, Thank you guys for coming. I know that a couple of you watched this morning's. I don't even know how that happened. So if you were part of this morning's stream, apparently while we were sleeping, our computer decided to live stream. It started around 7 a.m. We went to bed late last night. We watched two movies. And then we went to bed. And we all went to bed pretty late. So I woke up at 9 and got my son out of bed and brought him back in bed and just kind of laid around and waited for Jasmine to get up, who's my wife. And that whole time, somehow, my stream was playing. So then we had came out here, and around 11:30 or so, somebody texted me, "Hey, do you know that your stream is on?" So that was interesting. I did not. I still don't know how it happened. Still have no clue. So welcome everybody. I just want to say. Apparently, that's all I say. As you look in the bottom, this is once again time to remember that we are kratom advocates, and we are trying to stop the illegalization efforts that is happening all across the nation. So down here, you're going to see Maryland's news stations, and then you're going to see them followed up by Maryland's senators. If you can please be respectful, give them a call, tell them exactly why you want kratom to be saved, and we can go ahead and get this thing saved. I just also want to say that we are doing a great job at making, basically just coming together and being peaceful in here. Every stream I have is amazing, so let's keep that up. I am contemplating on whether or not we will be making we think we're going to fully fund a CD or an album for basically for the remembering all the folks that got lost in the opiate and heroin war. So that's something we're gonna focus on. Tonight I have an interesting show, specifically probably for the. It's going to be a little bit more intellectually based. I love this type of stuff. Some of you do, some of you don't. But it's something that I wanted to. I hear this is really a good lecture on kratom. It was to the pharmaceutical board, I believe, in Ohio. It's a guy named Peter Addy. So you're going to hear his lecture. Then there's going to actually be pretty cool footage playing while the lecture's happening. That footage will just be of random footage that I have acquired. That I've acquired over time. I have acquired this from my suppliers and people that I don't buy from and whatnot. So it's going to be an interesting chat, and if you guys have any kind of questions during it, I'll frequently go back and forth to the chat. Hopefully I can see I have this up here. I see it. Sometimes I don't follow along, but sometimes I do. So we're gonna have a really cool chat today. We're gonna listen to this guy who spoke in front of the where was it? The Oregon, not Ohio. Oregon, I don't know how you want to call it. Board of Pharmacy. So this is a discussion on safety, on kratom safety. It's really interesting because they go into certain things. I heard some bits and pieces of this, but I really wanted to save it for tonight. So it is really interesting. He starts off a little slow, this guy Peter Addy, but he'll pick it up with the information. The information is pretty cool for people that people like the stuff that the pharmacy and the board of pharmacy is hearing. So, like I said before, we have to know what thou enemy is thinking. So to know what thou enemy is thinking, we have to watch the same stuff they watch, listen to the same stuff they listen to, and whatnot. We had a couple streams ago, we had a news marathon, basically. We had a bunch of news clips, and we had an illustration on the map what was being said about kratom, and then you could see it on the United States map. We're going to continue that, and we're going to make that map even better, and then you could see and visualize the propaganda that's being spoken about. I do need to fix that map because there was actually one news story that was more positive than I thought, so the colors on the map have to change, and I got to figure that out. But while we're getting in here, we see a lot of people in here, so I'm going to start this up. Like I said, this is Peter Addy. This is one of those things that it's definitely something we want to hear. So I'm going to start that off. I'm going to stop it, not every 30 seconds, because this isn't copyright protected. So at every 30 seconds, I will not be stopping it. I'll be stopping it a little bit, but I just want us to absorb this information. So I will be interjecting every now and then. So let's go ahead and start this out. Let's hear this guy. Basically, it's my guest, Peter Addy. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. That work? Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Peter Addy, and I do a lot of things, but my main area of study was salvia, and I am faculty at Yale University, and we did some salvia research there, and I'm not talking tonight about salvia.
Like, I want to interject, just so you know, this starts a little slower, but it gets a little good in like 5 minutes in, and then it'll start picking up.
But that's a real interest of mine, and that plant is a selective kappa opioid receptor agonist, which I've talked about that at some other talks. I'm on YouTube. You can see a few things about that. But what really got me interested, I was doing research on salvia and other plants, other botanical compounds with similar properties, right? And I learned about kratom, which, among other things, is a kappa opioid antagonist, opposite effect on the same system of the brain. Like right up to me. There we go. Yeah. So I first learned about kratom through my research on salvia and learning about just how it works on the brain and how that might relate to addiction. And that's kind of what opened the door for me. And I've been reading about it for years since. I haven't done any research on it myself, so I've just been reading things over the years. And I'm not planning on doing any research. I'm not doing any research with this handout, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it's just been an interest of mine. And it's been in the news a lot lately. There's been a lot of press about kratom as maybe it's dangerous and it's this deadly narcotic and we need to schedule it immediately. Or maybe it's this wonder chemical that'll cure heroin addiction. And I've seen all sorts of weird claims like that online. And the truth is, in the middle between those two things. Let's see. So what do we know about kratom? So on the East Coast where I'm from, we say kratom with a soft A. Out in Portland, it seems like most people say kratom with a hard A. And then if you're in Thailand or Malaysia, it's something else in Thailand.
I'm a hard A, and it's kratom. And then in Thailand, it's kratom or something like that.
Entirely. So, but I'm going to say kratom. That's how I learned it. Kratom is from Southeast Asia. It was first described in the English language in 1836. Soon after, we discovered that the primary alkaloid by weight is called, again, I've been pronouncing it mitragynine. Who knows? I'm going to say mitragynine. That's what I know. And that's been used for opioid withdrawal, reducing pain, increasing energy. It's well described in Thailand and Malaysia. People use.
Curious, if you pronounce it mitragynine, press 1 in the chat. I'm just curious.
It's either classed similarly to or maybe a little bit better than using coca or opium to help you work, to help you cope from doing manual labor in the hot sun for 12 hours a day. It's also, apparently, it's well known in Southeast Asia that chronic kratom users, it darkens your skin. It increases pigmentation, even if you're inside all day. I've never heard that in the West. But in 1932, the first and so far only human pharmacology study was done on kratom in Southeast Asia. 80 years later, we have not duplicated it. And that's a shame. The research method back then was clearly, it's not up to today's standards, but it was shown to have a biphasic effect.
Everybody knows that's insane. 1932, and we still haven't had that research done. That's just such a shame.
If you take a little bit, it has a stimulant effect. If you take more of it, it can have a sedative effect. It can reduce pain, acute pain that they produced in the lab. And if you take too much, one of their subjects, unfortunately, was just nauseous and vomiting the whole time. And so dosage is very important. I learned that in 1932. In the 40s, it was criminalized in Thailand. In the 50s, it's been regulated in Malaysia. I believe in Malaysia, the plant, you can grow the plant. I mean, it's native to the region. It can grow, but you just can't manufacture from it. Chronic users have been described since the 70s, and it wasn't until 1998 we first discovered mitragynine is an opioid agonist in rodents. Wow. So, what do we know about it in Southeast Asia? There's, like most things in the world, it's gendered. So men take kratom in the morning and it helps them work. If you're doing manual labor in the hot sun for 12 hours a day, you need some kratom or some coca leaves or something to chew on to get you through the day. In Thailand, the leaves are chewed. In Malaysia, you make a juice or a tea out of the leaves. And men take it in the morning.
How about this? A company in one of these countries, a juice bar with kratom juices, basically like fruit and kratom juice. Try me. That's awesome. Who wants to go in on it?
To help them work. They take it at night to help them wind down or to socialize. It can also be an aphrodisiac. Women take kratom for medical reasons. So let's see here. To help treat fever, diarrhea, pain. You can make a poultice out of it for wound care. So women don't use kratom to work or for socializing. That's improper. It's used. It's a good substitute for opium and coca. Muslims can use it instead of alcohol.
Improper. Everywhere you go around the world, there are these gender separations, which is extremely interesting. It is extremely interesting.
And let's see. I found a recipe in one of the papers. So you take fresh leaves, add it to boiling water. You reduce it to a simmer for 1 to 4 hours, and you have to stir it, otherwise the leaves start to burn, and that smells really bad. But then, and that's good for at least 14 days. And so that's how to make this juice packet that they sell in Malaysia.
Holy crap! 14 days? That's awesome. Yo. Telling you, we could fly it over. I could fly it. Yo, I could fly fresh juice over and have a juice bar in like a big city. That's crazy. Imagine making it, boom, flying it over and having it good for 10 more days?
No one really knows how much kratom people use or how many people use kratom, but we see that it tends to be more popular in men than women, but that's drug use in general. We see that it's more popular among adolescents and young adults compared to older people, and again, that's just kind of true across the board. Unfortunately, that's changing a little bit. There's this new thing that all the cool kids are doing in Thailand and Malaysia. It translates to, in English, something like 4 by 100. And what that means is that you take like a sugary, like Coca-Cola, kratom, cough syrup, which is probably for the diphenhydramine, and then whatever kind of prescription drugs you can find, maybe some benzos or some antidepressants or whatever, and serve over ice, and that's the new popular drink, and that is very dangerous.
Yo, that sounds disgusting. I have heard some people try to replicate that in America, and it's so weird when you go country to country and you go like culture by culture. It's extremely... Well, number one, that sounds extremely dangerous. That sounds craziness. I still like the kratom juices. I really like that. I need to make that happen.
Don't do that. Mixing kratom with other drugs, particularly prescription drugs, particularly other opioids, is very dangerous, and that can be a lethal combination. And that's unfortunately becoming more popular. But traditionally, it's used by adults to help them work, and it's not seen as being bad. You know, like we're all addicted to coffee here, but it helps you work. You're a more productive member of society. So it's not seen as a particularly, there isn't much of a stigma to it, even though it is illegal. So why do people use kratom? As I mentioned, over in Southeast Asia, a lot of it is to work and then to kind of relax and come down from work, and also as a substitute or to help withdrawal from opioids, opium particularly. In the West, and there's been some research, some surveys in the US and Europe and then online, like the Vaults of Arrowwood. And we don't know where people are, but I'm just going to clump that together under the West when I talk about West versus East. So if you're online, I'll assume you're from the West, which isn't, that's maybe unfair of me, but I'm just going to clump it together. So in the West, people use kratom mainly to manage acute and chronic pain. Also for emotional and mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and insomnia, and again, to manage dependence on opioids or to help withdrawal from opioids. And you can see that there it's kind of the way people use methadone or buprenorphine or naltrexone, that you want to use that to kind of come down, and the withdrawal is less, the dependence is less debilitating, or so it's said. Amongst people who use kratom for pain, they say it's particularly beneficial for spinal pain and fibromyalgia. The reasons, so when people say, I took kratom and here's what happened to me, like on Arrowwood, right? Who knows about Arrowwood when I say that? So there's a great website, arrowwood.org. It's the information clearinghouse for documenting human use of psychoactive drugs. And one of the great things about Arrowwood
is crazy. It's got a lot of firsthand accounts from people that do a lot of different things. It's absolutely crazy.
You can write a report like, I took kratom and here's what happened to me. Here's how my day went. And you upload it, and it's curated. You can't just put anything on there. It's curated by humans. And then and there's over 200 of these reports, and so you can kind of see patterns over time. Sometimes the people write, I'm a 35-year-old man and I weigh 180 pounds and I'm taking these other medications and I live in this country, but a lot of times they don't. But from those kinds of anonymous reports, we get the idea that people report reduced pain, reduced fatigue, anxiety, and depression, increased well-being and relaxation. But there's also a lot of negative side effects. There's a lot of detrimental effects. So we have data from that from a few different sources. There's a hospital, one of the largest hospitals in Thailand, has a poison center.
Kratom.
And so they've recorded 40 cases of kratom poisoning over a 5-year period. And then there's also the Poison Center Network in Texas. They've been recording kratom poisonings, and then the U.S. system as a whole. And what happens there, so if you're in the hospital and you say, oh, I'm nauseous, I'm throwing up, I'm constipated, and then the doctor says, what have you taken recently? And they say, I took kratom. Then it enters into the hospital system. In the U.S., that's phone calls, and that could be a phone call from a paramedic or an outpatient doctor's visit or a hospital. But people have to make those calls and have to identify the patient said that they took kratom. So it's very limited. But the idea is that the poison networks all report the same. There's a lot of similarities there. About 33 to 40% of these reports are people who have taken other drugs. Again, prescriptions, alcohol, cannabis, but other things.
And for the people that are just walking in, I do want to let you guys know, this is, like I said, it's a little slower of a podcast, but it's very important that we know exactly what our quote-unquote enemies are watching. This gentleman, he usually talks about tripping, and he's a smart guy that talks about psychedelics, and he made a presentation to the Oregon Pharmacy Board. So this is the type of stuff that the pharmacy board is getting firsthand. So that's why we're kind of doing this. I did want to, sometimes I want to throw out some real good information. Sometimes when I found this little nugget, I think everyone really needs to know the nitty gritty. Sometimes it's a little bit slower than my craziness coming out on camera, but this is really something we need to know, you know.
In the U.S. system, there's been over 600 of these reports. And there's a statistically significant correlation. If you take kratom in combination with another drug, you are more likely to have a severe outcome, which means hospitalization. If you take just kratom, you're more likely to have a minor outcome or a moderate outcome. But the more drugs in your system, the more likely you are to have a severe outcome. Yeah.
I think he's asking a question here. We can't hear the question, but I would imagine it's something about what he just said.
Definitely that's a lot. That's a high dose. I'll mention first that also when we talk about negative effects, so there's these poison centers, there's surveys and the Arrowwood reports, and in those, it's almost the same thing. People talk about a lot of nausea, vomiting, dizziness, constipation. It can actually, one of the Southeast Asian surveys, people reported it increases libido, aphrodisiac effect in men. But these kind of negative effects that people report from chronic kratom use is that it reduces your libido and it makes it harder to be intimate. So that's kind of an interesting effect, short versus...
Ironic when he said it makes it harder, speaking about that.
long-term use, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, there's been a number of rodent studies, and then back in the day I found one paper that used dogs and cats as well. That's kind of out of favor. We don't do that very often. I haven't seen a single primate study, and there was only the one human study from the 30s. And animal research compared to humans, well, we metabolize drugs differently. I mean, that's just in general, but kratom specifically, mitragynine, is metabolized through a different pathway in rodents than animals. And usually, when you're doing research on rodents, you're injecting it. And humans, so far as I know, don't inject kratom or kratom alkaloids. It has been smoked. It is smoked once in a while, but that's pretty rare. It's usually taken orally, either chewing the leaves or an extract of it, that sort of thing. So for a number of reasons, what happens in mice and what happens in humans are different. And so I've read some of the literature, but I'm not really going to summarize it just because they're so different. But we have seen in rats and mice that it reduces pain. It reduces the response to acute pain. It's harder to study chronic pain in rodents, and it can reduce inflammation. And there is there's a point where it's unsafe, but you can overdose on water. So of course you can overdose.
Now I do, like I said, there's so much stuff to unpack here, but when it comes down to it, I personally don't usually disagree with people as much as other people do. So whereas I might not like what they say, I can't discredit. So this man he likes to talk on acid and mushrooms and mescaline and stuff like that, but he is well versed in other drugs, especially if he knows Arrowwood. It's just a kind of a community where people share their experiences. So it's interesting to see that because I really honestly do not think this man had a bias. Just like I said in the chat, I don't think he had a bias while he was researching this, and before he presented it, I think that he really sat down and tried to present it in the middle of the room. So you'll see that it gets a little bit, it's definitely,
but it has a much better safety profile than morphine, which is what it's always compared to. That's the gold standard opioid is morphine. The real problem with morphine, fentanyl, anything like that, is that it's going to reduce your breathing. Respiratory depression is what makes it so deadly. And kratom, or rather mitragynine, does not cause respiratory depression. So it's got a lot of promise there. Let's see. I will say the one kind of difference that I saw between Southeast Asia and the West is that the hospital poison system in Thailand reported seven seizures that people had that apparently were attributable to kratom. I haven't seen that from the U.S. literature. Not in the same kind of literature anyway, but that.
I need to interject here. This is not. No, this man isn't necessarily against kratom. He's presenting a report to the Board of Pharmacy in Oregon. I personally think he's not against it. I personally think he's trying to do his best to sit in the middle of the room and explain it. What he just said actually is he just said that there was seizures in Thailand that have happened. We don't want to talk about this. We don't really want to hear it. I've been vending for a while, and if there's anything that I have heard, it has been about that particular topic. And that was 3 different instances. So that's something that we all need to talk about. Just like anything, if you drink too much, you can die. So, I mean, it's just, and like you said, the water. This isn't necessarily to be we have to be realist. So when somebody brings this to the table, we can't be like, oh, no. We could know the facts or what is being told. So personally, I have actually heard from firsthand people that kratom was involved in this particular topic in the U.S. where he says he hasn't heard it. I have heard it, and I haven't heard about Thailand. So if you really want to think about that, that's pretty important. So if there's any sort of things that we can learn from that, is we can go back and look and see what those variables were, what those people had going on, because that's something we all need to worry about. If we have those same variables, we don't need to worry about necessarily, because there's millions and millions of people that are buying this plant in America. I'm just saying, as a harm reduction, as actually what education we need to bring to the table, and that is something that we need to think about.
Maybe that's, I mean, who knows where that's from, because these are hospital reports. It's hardly systematic. As far as dose, well, the kratom leaf, so these are the leaves that we're talking about. The leaf has, depending on the leaf.
Everybody put their own personal portions in the chat room, what you guys are pulling out of the bag each time. Let's go see some numbers.
There might be up to 40 unique alkaloids that are in the leaves. Not every leaf has all 40 of them. The most prevalent by weight is going to be mitragynine, and that's also the one that's been studied the most, and it has the most obvious psychoactive effects. That is a partial agonist at the mu-opioid receptor, and it's an antagonist at the kappa-opioid receptor.
So when I say partial agonist, just so you guys know, we had a stream about the mu receptor, okay? A partial agonist means the opioids and heroin. Imagine my finger right here. Imagine this finger being the mu receptor. Heroin and opioids grab onto that thing and just chunk down, and that's where you get bound, and you're like, woo! That's what heroin and opiates have. They're a full agonist. They are fully binding to that mu receptor. Kratom is a partial, so it actually just occupies. So instead of binding down, instead of just grabbing that thing and stamping down, it just kind of sits and floats around it and occupies it. It's very, very interesting.
So, without going into a pharmacology lecture, we have something like fentanyl or morphine, right? These are full agonists at the mu-opioid receptor. That's what causes pain relief, euphoria, addiction, and also the respiratory depression. Mitragynine is a partial agonist, so it's not going to bind as strongly to those centers of the brain. So it's a much, maybe it's a more mellow effect, partial agonist. But what's really interesting, I think, is that it's a kappa antagonist. You know what else is a kappa antagonist? Naltrexone and norbni, which I'm not going to try to say the whole name for that, but norbni is a research chemical used in rodents and primates and humans. I was involved in a lab study in Spain where we gave we gave people salvia and recorded their effects, right? And then half the time we gave them norbni beforehand, and that blocks all of your opioid receptors. So you take norbni and then salvia, you have no effects. It doesn't do anything. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a research chemical. I don't think it's really used for anything outside a lab, but it's similar to naltrexone or buprenorphine in that it kind of blocks your receptors. So it's a kappa. So that's just a full antagonist across the board. Norbni is a mu, delta, and kappa antagonist.
Another question was asked. I hate how they don't have mics on the questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we have, so a drug interacts with a receptor in a brain, right? And it could be a agonist or an antagonist. If it's an agonist, it connects to that receptor in the brain, and then it sends the signal along. It increases activity there. If it's an antagonist, it connects to that receptor, and then nothing else can get in, like nothing else can touch it. So the actual morphine or the salvin RNA, there's nowhere for it to bind to, so it can't have its...
And that's what Norcan is. That's what basically Norcan was. We were talking about the other day is the agonist would be heroin's an agonist and a partial antagonist from what I believe. And then when Norcan comes in, it is a full antagonist. So it just grips it up and shuts down any sort of effects.
It blocks that from happening. Within agonists, you can have partial agonists, full agonists, and then inverse agonists. And going into all of that is, well, that's beyond my level. But we have full agonists where, again, the receptor is covered and no other chemicals can connect to it. So if you have LSD affects serotonin 2A, and then regular serotonin can't affect that same receptor because the LSD is in its place, right? So here we have mitragynine, where it's a mu agonist, which is kind of like morphine, but it's also a kappa antagonist, which is kind of like naltrexone. And so that's what's really interesting to not just me, but to a lot of researchers who think that this chemical or maybe something derived from it could be the next treatment for pain or for opioid use.
That's really interesting how there's both those situations going on, and that's really got to be something that's interesting to the pharmaceutical world, because that's something that, I mean, they're probably dying and itching just to get their
yeah. So pharmacology isn't my area of expertise, but I used to work in a pharmacology lab, so I've picked up a few things. And we definitely have 3 kinds of opioid receptors, maybe 5, but definitely 3: delta, mu, and kappa. Nowadays, this was the first receptor system that we.
That's pretty cool to know. I mean, just for random knowledge, if you ever get in a conversation with like someone super duper intellectual on this subject, that's really important. He said there was 3 opioid receptors, and then there could be, what do you say, 4 to 8 or something like that. That's crazy. They just don't know. It's interesting.
Ever studied, that we ever discovered in humans or in any animal. Nowadays they're just labeled 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. But back then we used Greek letters, delta, mu, and kappa. Most of what we've studied, we know the most about mu, because that's the obvious thing that morphine does. It is a full agonist at the mu receptor.
Yeah, that mu receptor is the thing that makes things happen. That's what in a future podcast. That's exactly what we're going to be. Not exactly. I want to get a specialist on to kind of break it down into dumb people language for me. But it also has something to do with the glucose distribution too, so which is extremely interesting for those people that have blood sugar issues. Either way, it's definitely good to know on how it's affecting your blood sugar and your insulin dumps. It's extremely impressive? No, that doesn't even make sense. Keep going.
Right. When you take a drug, let's say you take morphine, and you're a healthy adult, and you're not used to it, you've never really taken morphine before, that's going to cause a lot of activity in the mu receptor system in a very ancient part in kind of the middle of your brain called the basal ganglia. And this leads to euphoria, and it leads to wanting to do it again, leads to impulsive use. For a few hours, it feels really good for a few hours, but then it starts to wear off, and you start to feel bad. Part of that feeling bad is because of the kappa opioid receptor.
So the basal ganglia is the thing that is the part of kratom that supposedly makes it addictive. Obviously, he's explaining it right now, which is super interesting, and then he's going in to speak about the kappa
system. It's kind of like your brain has both a gas and a brake, because you don't want to feel good all the time, because then you're not gonna go find food or escape from prey or predators, I should say. It's not very evolutionarily advantageous if you take morphine once and you're just high forever. So we have our own way to kind of block that. And
I don't know why it's so funny. Someone's just saying if you take morphine once and you're high forever. Imagine that society. One time. Wow, I hear acid can work out like that sometimes. That's just insane. That really is insane. I appreciate that, Kim. Hopefully I hope to balance out the crazy Joe times with the actual intellectual side, because we need to arm ourselves. Onward, Mr. Peter.
A lot of ways that we block and regulate those effects. One of the things is the kappa opioid system. When you increase activity there, you feel bad. People take synthetic kappa agonists in a research setting, and they were looking like, oh, maybe this would be a good treatment for pain, because kappa agonists, they also reduce pain, but they don't lead to euphoria and compulsive use. Instead of euphoria, they lead to dysphoria, which is what it sounds like. It's kind of the opposite of it. And we see that in
Wow. That's extremely interesting. Kappa, pain relief, but you get dysphoria. That's crazy.
salvia. It's a little bit different with salvia, but people refer to one of the subjects I had, they talked about seeing everyone in the room, but as if you're looking through a tunnel, like you're just more distanced from people. It wasn't so much that they were crying, they were just like farther away emotionally. And that is not something that you're looking for when you're trying to patent.
So this is really interesting, because when you think about the alkaloids inside the leaf, and everybody wants to say the different effects and whatnot, this is really bringing what my theory is to the table about how we react is really the proponent of what the experience is going to be. And like I said, I want to make a disclaimer. I don't promote any use out there for this. It's just personal experience and anecdotal experience. But this is extremely interesting, because he said the way he's explaining it is, maybe those 40 or so alkaloids, they're interacting with the receptors differently from person to person. Maybe they have like a set standard of what they're supposed to be doing, but then everybody kind of has like their own character, and so this is where those minute differences happen. Like I said the other day on a podcast, those tiny differences to change the effects from instance to instance. It's absolutely compelling. It really is.
Pain relieving medicine, so no one's been able to make any medicine out of kappa agonist or antagonist drugs. But so you take something like naltrexone, or what else here? Buprenorphine, those three. That's a kappa antagonist. So even if you take morphine and you start to feel good, if you have naltrexone first and then you take morphine, it doesn't really work so well. And it helps with the craving as well, because one of the things that the kappa system regulates is things like how you understand pain in your body, not whether you feel it or not so much as kind of your relationship to it. It's been a little while since I've gone through this literature, but So three different kinds of opioid receptors. And
So that's super interesting. I seen Aaron Arthur had just wrote something. Aaron Arthur said something odd I have found is kratom works great for opiate WDs, but opiates don't really help with mild kratom WDs. And that I think that's almost in the same context where he was just saying this one was doing this one, this wasn't doing that for that. That's extremely interesting to think about, and how our minds and those receptors are really truly interacting with each other. The interdependency of those alkaloids within those that leaf is really different. Maybe who's to say, like, maybe it works differently in somebody else. You know, that's super cool. That's super interesting.
And we see that kratom, in one way, it works kind of like morphine or fentanyl, that it feels good and it reduces pain. And in another way, it kind of works like naltrexone or buprenorphine, where it can help people who don't want to be taking morphine, right? So it's got a little from column A, a little from column.
This is one of the best parts, the best lectures I've heard on this, because it really kind of breaks down, and not in the super duper smart people way, but this is so interesting to me. Go on.
B. There's another chemical in kratom leaves called 7-hydroxymitragynine. And it's there anyway, but also mitragynine breaks down into 7-hydroxy. So the older the leaf, the more, the ratio is going to change. And 7-hydroxy, but also mitragynine.
I rewound that. Check this out. This is exactly why I say you cannot put alkaloids on a label. This is a man that's in the medical industry, okay? People like the program that the AKA demands their vendors, and the Kratom Consumer Protection Act actually says you have to put this alkaloid on the label. And listen to what this man says. Listen to what he says. And I'm telling you, I've been saying this from the get-go, okay? I've been telling everybody that I know in the whole entire community, I've been saying this. I got kicked out of forums for saying this, and it's based on science. Sorry for snapping, but listen to this.
Mitragynine breaks down into 7-hydroxy, so the older the leaf, the more, the ratio is going to change. And 7-hydroxy.
Dude, I'm telling you, I literally have said that the other day. I'm getting justified now. I'm super happy about this. Do you understand how impossible it is to label the alkaloids? That is what people are asking on the new Consumer Protection Act. That's what the AKA, which God bless their heart, go donate to them. Go donate to them right now. But on this Consumer Protection Act, they're asking their vendors, telling their vendors, put the alkaloids. The alkaloids can change inside the bag. What are you talking about? The alkaloids can change on a tree. You can have 5, 6, 10 different sets of alkaloid levels, multiple different ways. I've said this on the other podcasts. It's impossible. It's false marketing. It's only there so people can market. That's all it is. It's a lie. That's crazy. Not based on science. This is why I tell people to worry about the thing that AKA is doing. Amazing lobbyists. They are so good at lobbying for this leaf. Go donate to them. Go donate to them now. But the thing about it is, we need to talk to them about certain policies, because we're the Kratom people. They're not the Kratom people. They're the lobbyists. We're the Kratom people. Okay, the Kratom people knows about Kratom things, and we should be help making the Kratom laws and stuff. Come on now. We're the Kratom people. You and me, Kratom people.
Is also, so it's a mu partial agonist, it's a kappa antagonist, and then it's got a third property. It's a delta opioid receptor antagonist as well. I don't know much about the delta receptor system. I don't think anyone does. But that naltrexone, also an antagonist at delta. Buprenorphine doesn't seem to affect delta very much. Mitragynine doesn't affect delta. But again, so we have two chemicals. The point here, rather than going too much into a chemistry talk, the point is that we have these two chemicals in this plant that work to cause feeling good, euphoria, compulsive use through the mu opioid receptor, but then through kappa and delta opioids, these same chemicals can limit the euphoria and the craving and the addiction. So it's
That's extremely interesting, because that's crazy to me, man. This plan is amazing. It really is. So I don't know if you just heard him. I'm going to recap. Basically, it's got it's got some stuff in it that makes you, obviously it has addictive traits, but then to counterbalance in nature to what makes this thing such a, for what they say makes it therapeutic is that anti action on it, and it's just crazy. That's amazing. Keep going, Mr. Peter.
Like I said, it's a little of this and a little of that, and it's all together in one plant.
And it changed. I'm reading Brian.
Maybe, yeah. That's kind of the theory.
And I'm reading Brian's. It says it loses potency. Now it changes the alkaloid percentages. We don't know if it loses potency from person to person, because, like in most people's theories, it's how the alkaloids get reacted to each individual. So we do not know if it might lose its potency for some people, and then that percentage works well or better for a different situation. So it's interesting. I do agree with you, Brian, but when I get to the details down, and because we just don't know what everything, the alkaloid values, we don't know which ones work and which ones don't work. So there's, like I said the other day, the kratom is like a chorus of alkaloids. Not one of those singers are going to sing gorgeously on their own, but the beautiful part of the song is the song playing in its totality is when all the singers are singing together. It's the interdependence of the alkaloid that makes the song beautiful, and every single day there's a different song because those interdependence can change. A couple singers can sing at different notes. We just have that interdependence. It's so crazy to basically think about.
The way that the kappa system interacts with the others and with the reward circuitry in the brain, it's very complex, but that might be part of it. So people use kratom to feel more social and more connected to other people, right? When you take morphine and then 8 hours later, you don't feel very social at all. And so the kappa system is one of many things that might mediate those kinds of effects. There are a lot of other chemicals in kratom, right? There might be 40 different alkaloids. We don't know anything about those other ones.
Nothing. We know nothing about. That's why I say the mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine does not really mean good or bad. They don't mean anything. Number one, they can change, and number two, I've had multiple lab tests, so who knows if they're accurate. Probably not accurate at all. You know what's crazy? Guess what, everybody? Guess what I have coming in? If you really think that mitragynine is so awesome and you think it's great, I supposedly have a 2.7% mitragynine shipment coming in. And when I say I got a shipment, I got a big shipment coming in. Like I said, this is not personal use. This is not promoting this product. I'm just saying for personal use. I might happen to do personal use for all these hundreds of kilos that's coming in all on my own. Anyways, this isn't a show about me. Let's go.
We've looked at, I think, 6 that I've been able to find in English. 6. 2 of them have these opioid properties and the other 4 don't by themselves. But that leaves another 30 or so chemicals that we don't know anything about. And we don't know anything about how they interact with each other. So we know from cannabis literature, everyone's talking about the entourage effect, right? So you have THC and CBD and the ratio between the two, but then you have all these other chemicals and terpenes and flavonoids and all these things. So the overall picture is very different than just reducing it to one chemical. There's been a little bit of work on that. So I found one paper that analyzed the leaves of a plant from Thailand. The Thailand plant so most plants, just kind of across the board, a plant is about 1% alkaloids, because then you have things like fiber and chlorophyll. And that stuff's very good for the plant, but fiber, starch, chlorophyll, these things aren't very useful to us as humans. So the first thing you do when you want to investigate this new plant that you just found in the jungle, you extract the alkaloids. So they extracted just the interesting part of the plant from a Thai leaf, and they found of that 1%, 60% of that extract was mitragynine. That's a lot. So 60.
Yo, this is going to be crazy. I've heard this report. I've read this study or a summary of this study. So, just so you know that to summarize, they took that 1% and then they measured that, and 60% of that 1% was mitragynine, and this was in Thai. So supposedly, well, you'll see, you'll hear. It's extremely interesting to me, at least. Hopefully, to you folks too.
6% of 1% of, a 10-gram dose. And 2% was the 7-hydroxymitragynine. So it's not even, it was the third or fourth most common constituent in that leaf.
There you go. See, 7-hydroxy was the third or fourth most common constituent in that particular sample in Thailand. So that sample in Thailand had 1%. They tested that 1%. That was important. 60% of that 1%, if that makes sense, was mitragynine. And then 2% was 7-hydroxy. So, and from what we heard before, the longer that mitragynine sits, so let's say you have a Thai leaf with a lot of mitragynine, so the longer that sits or dries or what, that's where you get reds. So maybe that 7-hydroxy mitragynine is because when they color it, it supposedly changes the mitragynine to 7-hydroxy mitragynine, kind of like when the THC turns into THCA or whatnot over time or something like that. So it's really super interesting to think about the different regions and then to think about what the time does to those alkaloids, which we're learning about now, which I must say I have never learned about until tonight. Well, I have, but not on a show like this.
A different group, different point of time, they took some leaves from a plant in Malaysia. The Malaysian plant, they got this alkaloid extract, and then of that, 12% mitragynine. So it's plant from Thailand, 66%, plant from Malaysia, 12%. Huge difference. The Malaysian...
I need to go check this study out and what date these samples were pulled. I'm super enthralled by this. This is extremely interesting.
Plant didn't have any 7-hydroxymitragynine. Maybe it was new. Maybe it was a younger tree. And some of the other ones, some of these, what do they call it? Minor constituents. Some of them were in both plants. Some of them were only in this one or only in that one. So there's a huge range.
So this is what makes me upset is you just heard that. I keep interrupting this guy, but this is where those phenotypes come in and the strains come in, okay? But not so that one that they tested in Thailand might not necessarily be all like that. They might have just had a sample. That Thai sample might end up growing somewhere in Malaysia. It's just those samples they had, and this is a crazy, amazing difference. That once we can get this, even the gene, like let's say we ever get the genome mapped, like that's amazing. This is extremely beneficial for therapeutic research in the future. Extremely beneficial. So just to recap, we have the Malaysian of 1% was tested. It was 60% mitragynine. The Thai was 60% mitragynine. Thai leaf was 60% mitragynine in the sample. And then the Malaysian was tested, and it was 12% mitragynine.
The people who know this stuff, who can do the math and understand animal models way better than I do, they said in that paper that the amount of 7-hydroxymitragynine that was available in the Thai plant was not enough to be psychoactive or even bioactive. Like it was such a small amount that it doesn't really matter how useful or potent it is. It's not going to do anything. But that's just that one plant. Other plants have different levels. There's the entourage effect that we don't know anything about. So the outcome here, the takeaway point is that different plants have different percentages of things. And we know this for cannabis, and we know this for things like wine and coffee and tobacco. Everyone knows that a Cuban cigar is different from a Guatemalan cigar. Coffee, there are people here in Portland who swear they can take a sip of coffee and they know if it was full shade or partial shade and what season that it was grown in and if it was on the leeward or the windward. And
I can taste minute differences. I can taste and smell and just the overall look. I can guess where it's been dried and how it's been grown. Sometimes it's interesting. I love doing it with my suppliers.
I don't know if that's true, but I don't have that selectivity. But some people say that that's there, and we know even indoor versus outdoor cannabis and the different genetics of it, as well as the environment that it's growing in, they greatly affect things. So when we're talking about a dosage, right, how many grams to have a sedative effect versus stimulant, it's going to vary quite a bit. But you get enough people together, you get 200 people on Arrowwood. The largest study that's been done was over 8,000 people. That was an online survey. Wow. So you get enough people, and you can get some averages at least. So, dosage averages. According to the people on Arrowwood, according to Mr. and Mr. Arrowwood, I should say, who analyzed the data, a threshold dose is 3 grams. A common dose is 8.7, we'll call it 9 grams. And then a strong dose is 18 grams. And the strong dose...
Holy cow. Now, I've been around for a little while now. It's, that's a lot. Now, I've been talked to about 4,000 plus people over the course of my years. My just conversations with customers, thousands of people. And that 18 number is crazy high. I hear people get there, but that's crazy high.
That's a lot. That's more, yeah. Yeah. One thing you'll notice about Arrowwood reports is that I think that people who go to Arrowwood, they really like Terence McKenna's idea of the heroic dose. So you want to, if you're going to investigate something, you just go full-blown into it, jump into the deep end of the pool and take 19 grams of kratom and see what happens. But we've seen from a number of these surveys and some of the other reports that the more you take, it's a very linear relationship. The more you take, the more negative effects you're going to have. The more nausea, vomiting, dizziness, that kind of thing. There's been some reports of fainting and heart murmurs. And
like I said, I don't personally recommend anybody use this for anything at all. I recommend people go get their doctor's advice and figure it out. But my personal experience with this, like I said, this has nothing to do with anything other than my personal experience, and don't do what I do. I can't go over 12. I just can't. I can't do it.
Some pretty scary sounding things. So a light dose, 5 grams, common dose, 9 grams. I've seen some other reports from different places that put it at maybe a little bit lower, that maybe a low stimulating dose is maybe 3 to 5 grams, and a sedative dose is going to be 8 to 10. But again, it depends on a lot of different factors. I did some real quick kind of back of the envelope calculations, and they did these juice packets that you use in Malaysia. Each one of those juice packets contains, on average, 80 milligrams mitragynine. So using some of these figures, maybe that's somewhere around 6 grams of dried leaf is in one of those juice boxes. And people are using those 3 times a day, and that's a severe addiction to take that much 3 or 4 times.
That's super cool, the juice boxes. That's extremely interesting. I must have one shipped. I'm going to have a case of those shipped, everybody. No, I'm just joking. That's amazing. I'm going to try those. That's just my personal experience. There is no representation of telling you to do something. Just saying.
A day. In summary, so
spit it out.
The final point, so that's kind of a general overview of the literature. Didn't touch on the animal research because I think it's limited relatability to human research, but we see that it's got a long history of safe use. It seems to be mostly safe if you use it by itself, and it can be very dangerous in combination or for long periods of time. It's been getting a lot of news lately. A lot of the news has been how it's a deadly narcotic, right? The FDA put out a report last year claiming 44 deaths in this country related to kratom use. Now, on the one hand, this report is available online, but it's over 100 pages, and it's culled from all these different sources. So this, a county morgue here, hospital here,
Yeah, and this is crazy because I'm trying to hunt down I will I'm telling you from this to you guys, when you see this this podcast going to grow, I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to catalog every single death from Kratom, and I'm going to investigate it and report it to you. Okay, that is my commitment to you. I want to find out who died and why they died. Okay, I want to find out. I want to see their obituaries. I want to know the toxicologist's name. I want to know their family member's name. No, I'm not going to harm their family or talk to their family, but I will try to break this down for us because we need to know this information. We're just being spoon-fed information, and all of a sudden we're supposed to believe it. And if you don't believe it, you're some conspiracy theorist or you're a nut job. Go screw off. That's crazy.
Doctor's visit over there. A lot of it is handwritten. I'm bad at reading handwriting just in general, but some of this stuff is really bad. Some of it's going to be it's portrait here and then landscape the other way, and there's no consistency as far as putting the demographics on top, and then and just kind of the order of things. So it's very unstructured. As a data scientist, it gives me a headache. And I don't know anyone who's systematically gone through and reported on these 100+ pages. But some
this needs to be broke down. I'm just saying. I'll stop interrupting this guy.
people have looked it over.
Stop asking questions so low, dude. I hate they don't have mics on the questions. Now they got laughs. I want to know what they're laughing about. What are you laughing about?
Yeah, there's more than one thing like that where someone, if you didn't hear, so one person was shot in the chest. That is how they died. But they had kratom in their system at the time of death during the autopsy. So kratom is listed as a component cause of that death. And that seems unlikely. That seems not really related to me. There are a few where the person died, and then later, after the fact, a family member called the coroner and said, this person was using kratom at the time. Can you add that to the report? And so that was added and included in the FDA's list.
What the heck? Did you just hear that? How is that going to happen? A family member called the coroner up and that included in the FDA list? Yo, you guys need to help me out here, for real. Over the next couple weeks, hopefully this'll keep picking up and we can keep having these streams, man. But research-wise, I have a couple people that have contacted me. If you're interested in researching for this show, I want to nitpick the findings of the FDA. We need to find out the people who had died. I feel like it's bullcrap, half of them. I know it's bullcrap. So I was going to hire a private investigator, but it costs a lot of money. So maybe when we get to a larger point, we could actually hire a private investigator, and I can actually spend that money on TV so you can see that what that money is going towards. I am willing to do this stuff. If we got the eyeballs, I am willing to pick apart, doesn't matter who it is, whoever I got to try to get to the bottom of this, the information. A coroner called, or a family member called the coroner and said, add this to your report, and then the FDA added it to the report. If that doesn't sound freaking shady, what does? That's crazy.
Most of these, I want to say something like 40 out of 44, I forgot exactly, the people who died have had many drugs in their system, other prescriptions, even alcohol and cannabis, other opioids particularly. So one takeaway here is that combining kratom with other drugs is dangerous. Don't do that. However, even if we are all on our best behavior, it might not be up to you. What really sparked a lot of this bad media was in, I believe, 2009. 9 people died in Europe from a product called Krypton. And Krypton was later found to have kratom and tramadol in it, which is a prescription opioid. And I don't know what the packaging on this product looked like, but it probably did not say kratom plus tramadol. So I'm going to guess.
I don't understand this either. You know how much money it costs for people to get these other drugs? It's not highly likely that people are spiking kratom. I've never heard of it. It costs money. Kratom is free to grow. It's so stupid that people say this. It happens. I get it. It happens. Blah, blah, blah. But think about the economics of that. So silly.
That the people who took these pills didn't know what they were taking, and 9 people died. And that's no fault of their own. So what we see here is that combining drugs with kratom is sometimes deadly. And even you do your due diligence, it might not be enough because the dietary supplement industry is poorly regulated.
There goes another question from the people. Why can't we hear the questions, bro? Puts us more in the moment. And then you gotta wait. You gotta repeat the question for the people. That's what he should be doing right now. He should be listening to it and then repeating.
Yeah,
the
a lot of
question.
people want to use kratom as a step down, right? But if taking 2 opioids together is dangerous, how do you do that safely? I really can't comment on that. I know that there are a lot of message boards. Reddit has a big community. There's a lot of places where people talk about that, but I couldn't say. Those same message boards also talk about people who say, help, now I'm addicted to kratom, and I want to stop that. But coming off of kratom, by every standard, every story from every country I've come to, it's less bad than coming off of heroin or something like that. But it is not, it's not perfect. There is a known withdrawal syndrome. The handout, that was from really good methodology. I really liked the way they did it. But that was a group in Thailand, and they came up with 20 questions to measure, this is what kratom withdrawal looks like. And you can score 0 to 60. So if anyone is going through kratom withdrawal, you can take the test and you can see how bad it is. So really one of the dangers here is that this is an herbal supplement, and those aren't regulated very well. In 2015,
I hate this, man. We want a nipple so bad. It's like, I want a nipple in my mouth and I just want to suckle off the nipple for my whole life because I can't control myself because I'm not I'm uncontrollable. Like, I'm an adult. I can deal with stuff. Unregulated. Why is that such a thing for professionals to want to regulate? That's all it means is tax and fees. Unregulated. Shut up. We got regulations and people are dying left and right from medicines, you stupids. You're stupid. You're stupid, people. Oh, not you people. Those people. These people. Holy crap. How mad does this not get you or get you? I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Unregulated. It's unregulated. So is peanuts. 200 people or so die from peanuts, you stupid Momo. Headbutt.
The FDA issued a recall. There were 4 companies in the state of New York: Walmart, Walgreens, GNC, and another one. And they looked at herbal supplements on the shelves, and 4 out of 5 didn't have the herb that they were being sold for. Some of them had nothing but rice powder, or some of them had a little bit, but not enough, not much. One of them, the worst one, Target was the other.
See, you might not agree with me on this one, but listen, I don't want people to get ripped off ever. I don't. But not everything in life is like, just currently, everything had like people. It's not even honest. People aren't even honest anymore. The regulations are just like, hey, will you lie about what's on your label? And they're like, sure, I'll lie about. And then everyone's like, oh, la, 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 we're happy. We're happy because we're being lied to. And we just think we're not being lied to. It's so stupid. Like, it's so dumb. People act like like the other day, I forget what we were listening to. Somebody was insinuating that Indonesians are somehow more inclined to lie because they're a third world country. What? Why? Why is a third world country more inclined to lie? Why isn't America more inclined to lie? Because everything we do is lie. We lie the best. We are the best liars in the entire world. But you know what we'll do? We'll snub our noses at everybody. We'll snub our noses at everything that's not American. And I love America. Don't let me sound like I'm not a patriot, because I'm a patriot. I am for America. I'm just not for this bullcrap. Sorry.
The one: GNC, Target, Walgreens, Walmart. Walmart had ginkgo biloba, and on the package, gluten-free, right? This product had no ginkgo biloba, but it did have wheat. And that's scary. That's really dangerous for someone with celiac. Like, that's not funny. That's really awful. And this is just the dietary supplement industry as a whole. So to say a lot of the bad press.
But it doesn't, that's not anybody's fault. That's just a liar. That's the thing, is everybody wants to be protected. They're like, protect me, please. Just please do anything to make me feel protected. And even though I'm not protected, I still want to feel protected. Please, bring me a law. Let me get a law. I need that person to stop. He needs to stop doing everything, so make a law for everybody. Protect me. Shut up. Wow. I'm really going off the deep end, guys.
Is that, oh, kratom, you don't know what's in it, so we should outlaw it. Well, if you outlaw something, then you have no control over. Like, we have a little bit of control over kratom marketing and packaging now, and if you outlaw it, you have zero control over it. It's also been in the news because some kratom products have salmonella, and that's very unpleasant. So there's been some voluntary and some mandatory recalls of kratom products late last year, early this year, I think. As of this morning, the CDC is aware of 6 salmonella outbreaks in the country.
Oh, guys, this is really going to give me a headache just because it's just going to frustrate me. I want to tell you firsthand knowledge as a vendor that I know a vendor, a very close personal person, okay, that had one box, one small, I don't know, like 50-pound box, okay, of kratom intercepted at the border, okay? The other batch that was marked around it, so it wasn't like the first, it wasn't like the end, it was the middle batch, okay, that was got. There was like 4 or 5 other boxes on each end. Every single one of those boxes tested negative for salmonella. But the FDA, while they confiscated it because of the import alert, also at the same time of all this crazy lying stuff they were doing, which I think they were lying, happened to send a letter along with it saying that that sample had salmonella, but they wouldn't release over the entire 20 kilos so that it could be tested themselves. It's a bunch of crap, I'm telling you. Yo, some things could happen, just like lettuce can have salmonella. I'm just saying, the FDA is not playing fair, I don't think. God bless the government. God bless our system. I'm lucky to be in this country, but I'm just saying it's possible that the FDA is not playing fair. Oh, I need to hit play.
Kratom is number 2 on that list. It's the second worst. As of today, 132 counts of salmonella in kratom products. But you know what's even worse than kratom? What's even more dangerous? Chicken salad.
Yeah, it's so stupid, man. I've never gotten salmonella from personal experience. I'm not promoting this product at all. I'm saying almost 900 harvests, man. Come on, man. It can happen, I get that, but it's like, just because stuff happens randomly, we report about it, and then it's like, oh my gosh, that happens to everyone. Oh, what? Danny walked on the street on 7th Street and got hit by a purple truck. Now, every time you walk on 7th Street, you better watch out for purple trucks because you're going to get hit because Danny got hit by a purple truck.
Chicken salad, 265 counts and 1 death. And food, that's not even an herbal supplement. This is a food product, which is well regulated, I think. I used to work in the food.
So make chicken illegal then.
Food service industry a long time ago. It's probably better regulated than herbal supplements, and someone died from chicken salad. So a lot of the bad press is that kratom is deadly because it's used in combination with other drugs, or it's bad because it could have salmonella, or because it's just unregulated and no one knows what's in it. In my opinion, if anyone was asking me, I would say the thing to do is to tax and regulate it like recreational cannabis. And then we have independent testing, we know what's in it. If there is an outbreak, then we can stop it at its source before it even gets to the marketplace. And then we could see not just mitragynine and 7-hydroxy, we could start looking at some of the entourage effects. That's what I'd like to see. One last point. is that I found, this is just kind of an interesting little thing. This was from mice, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on animal research, but I found that they were looking at how kratom, how mitragynine might affect alpha-2 adrenoreceptors. Don't ask me to talk more about those. But the idea is that...
Holy crap, remember the other day we were making fun of that? I shouldn't have been making fun of that guy. I really do. I'm sorry. The other day I did a reaction video on the people that upset me, and I shouldn't have made fun of a couple people. But there was one guy that was saying, check out adrenaline. If you don't know about adrenaline, check out adrenaline. And this kind of connects to that. So I was proved to be the fool, and he was proved to be the... And there's nothing that can rhyme with that. That was cool.
So here's what they did. They took some mice, and they gave them 5-MeO-DMT. Yeah, and that causes a very obvious behavioral effect if you take 5-MeO-DMT. Then they gave the mice kratom, mitragynine, no DMT effect, completely blocked it. Yeah. So they thought, well, mitragynine might have something to do with these alpha-2 or the 5-HT2A receptors, so let's try this. So then they gave the mice yohimbine, and then mitragynine, and then 5-MeO-DMT. And the yohimbine inhibited the mitragynine's inhibiting effect, so that they had the DMT effect again, if you're following me.
Yeah.
So there's something in yohimbine, probably alpha-2 adrenoreceptors. The yohimbine blocked whatever it is that mitragynine was doing. Mitragynine, it's doing something that blocks 5-MeO-DMT. So if anyone here is interested at all about tryptamine psychedelics, and perhaps also interested in kratom use, at least in mice, they don't mix well. But not in an unsafe way, just in that the DMT doesn't do anything. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's super interesting.
Is that relevant to humans?
No.
How do mice versus humans metabolize DMT?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's
not relevant to me.
My knowledge. But that's just an interesting little tidbit I found.
So is that it, Peter? You got anything else to say? Oh, you got questions. Somebody asked questions again.
Yeah, I wonder the time course. I know. So in the mice, they took mitragynine and then waited a little while. And then, right? So is that going to be a rescue med like naloxone would be or something?
That's
I don't know.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, I mean, anytime you take something orally, like kratom tea, you gotta
or
wait like a half
DMT
an hour
rescue.
for it to enter your bloodstream to begin with.
Huh. That's interesting. I think that's...
As far as I know, it is legal. There are some states, it brings up a good point, some states it is illegal. Some countries, kratom is illegal. Some states within the U.S. Oregon, as far as I know, it's perfectly legal. There was some talk last year about making it a Schedule I substance in Oregon, but I and others spoke out publicly against that, and so far there hasn't been any talk about it this year that I know of, but that's always kind of there.
So this guy spoke against Schedule I, so that's good. And he did bring up some good solid points to use as a kratom advocate.
There in the background. That's it. That's my talk. That's all the notes I have. So.
All right. So like I said, everybody, that was an extremely interesting chat with Peter. Peter Addy, I think is his name. How'd you guys see? It's a little bit different than my normal. I don't really have a normal, so I just wanted to bring to the table a more intellectual side of the podcast. I think we learned. I think people that watch this today will learn more in this podcast if they let it go on than what they've learned in their entire time with kratom. And I do think that we need to sit and think about this stuff that he was talking about. So if there's any questions you guys have that I can research or find material for, I can. I will. Like I said, it's just a little bit. This is the start of this podcast. I'm going to get into some complex stuff but I'm going to make it a little easier to understand. So we can actually slow down and we can see it in a layman's point of view. And that's the first time anyone's ever kind of explained the receptors. And the receptors were you could pretty much understand the receptors. So just to recap the receptors, there's the mu, there's the kappa, and then there's the delta. The mu receptor was the one that most of the opioids act off of. The kappa does have pain relieving effects, but it also has a negative side effect towards some people that makes people not want to take it. And then the delta, not a lot of people knows about delta. So that's extremely channel. I was reading the last comment. It said channel in it. It said extremely channel. So I don't, anything that you guys do want to know about, please let me know. If I haven't reached your email, I've kind of stayed away from emails the last day just because I've been so busy, and I usually do my emails during the week, but the weekend I do check the Kratom commentary. Last week I did. So I've been super duper busy. I'm actually listen to my project. So I am funding I'm funding a CD, an album. I have already purchased 2 artists. If anybody writes songs and would like to be considered to be on this album, then I would send the songs to me. I might not use them. I'm not going to be mean, but I will be honest. If the song isn't something I want to use, I'm not going to use them because I'm currently buying professional time for people to write these songs. I have 2 artists so far. I have a pianist, and then I have a hip hop guy from Germany, but he's English. And it's so far I've got a good set of what I want. This album will be Kratom Revolved, and it's going to be dedicated to the people that have lost their lives with opiates and heroin. So it's definitely going to be pretty cool. I'm excited to see the outcome of that. If there's anything that I've missed in the chat, I know we were chatting a little bit more. So if there's anything missed in the chat, just go ahead and ask me now. I can't be scrolling up because I need to get the super chats, or I need a Discord so we can go ahead and or maybe start firing up a Twitter or something like that so I can get direct questions and I can just go back. If you do have questions, I can sift through a little bit better on the chats. Anybody that needs to know what kind of music, every kind of music, it's going to be a mix. I'm going to get every kind of music that there is under the sun. There's no genre. It's just basically the music that will be. I want to get passionate artists. The 2 artists that I have actually had people in their lives die from opiates or heroin. So the one song is 2 minutes finished, and it's really good. I really like it. It's not even recorded yet. I personally like it a lot. I think it's extremely listenable. I think I might, never know. There might be, hopefully there'll be a couple good songs on here. We could get some local play, just to shine some light on this, on this leaf and the problem, the epidemic that we have in this country. So, as for my company, if you do want to get information on my company, just go ahead and email me. The email's in the description, kratomcommentary@gmail.com. The riddle. The riddle. There's a riddle. There's one more riddle. All the people that have been waiting for that riddle, they're like, come on, dude, where you been? So I do have a riddle. Let's see here. Let's see where my riddle is at. Bear with me. All right, there it is. All right, my riddle. Hold on here, folks. I have one more riddle. If you're on my email list, you know why that is. You get prizes, and the person that gets all 4 riddles of the last 3 plus this one will get free awesome stuff. So this is the riddle. Okay, hear me now. Okay, this is it. What 1-digit number, when spelled backwards, is double digits numbers. Think about that. I'll say it one more time. What one-digit number, when spelled backwards, is double digits numbers? Interesting how I said that, wasn't it? So I will definitely be seeing if you can get that one. This one was extremely hard for myself. I usually do pretty well with these riddles, but this one, it definitely. I'll put it in the chat. Just so you can see it. It is now in the chat. So if you're listening to this in the future, you can look in the chat. It was posted by Relief LLC. This is a tough one for someone to get. This one is going to be interesting because it was definitely one that was for the ages. So, folks, I do want to say thank you for coming in. I'm gonna go ahead and play the countdown on the way out. I know a lot of people like to talk it up. I really, really, really enjoy people coming on here and kind of talking with each other and having a good time. And I really, if there's anything that makes me really happy, it's that we're getting along and we're having a good time and we're giving each other a sense of community, a sense of humanity with each other, and that's what we need in life. We can't just sit in a room by ourselves, because when we go outside, we just become irritable and just, things just aren't the same. When we share it with other people, that's when life really, really tends to be the best. So if you need anything at all, just let me know, and we will I'm going to play the intro on the outro, because I still yet have an outro. I was meaning to look on Fiverr, because I haven't had time to make one. So I thought I was going to buy one. But then I got wrapped up in this project of mine with the songs, and I have some other projects going on that I'm spending money on Fiverr like crazy right now, which is extremely fun. I might make videos about what I get on Fiverr and what is actually coming to happen. Would you guys like to see that? Would you guys like to see like the behind the scenes on, certain things that I get on Fiverr, and see it like the creators, what they're creating for me? So I might do something like that, a behind the scenes, just for the Kratom stuff. But I will be back maybe tomorrow. I will be back maybe the next day, probably tomorrow. It depends, Mondays or, Tuesdays. Tomorrow's really my Monday, because there was no shipping today, so it's really tough on the shipping, because we really got to bunker down and give everything out. And these last 4 weeks have been absolutely animalistic. I don't know what happened. I posted I guess a little article 4 weeks ago, and ever since that article got posted, it's just, we went bananas. Just so everybody knows, for the company that sponsors the show, Relief LOC, if you do want to get in contact with them, their affiliate program, all right, pays 30% back to your account. So if you're out there and you're wanting to make money for yourself, which it ends up being money spent in their account on their website, but 30% back is pretty crazy. Nobody else is doing that. So, and all people have to do is just get their code and hand it to somebody. Every single order that you make on their website, they give you your own personal business cards to give away to people with your own personal code. So I just want to disclaim that we are not telling you to go buy this for use of anything medicinal. And if anybody wants to utilize this plant, please do it under doctor's supervision, or know that it's on your own caution, that you're experimenting with yourself. Don't blame anything on anybody else. There should always be a well-researched vendor on the other end of your purchases, and there always should be a contact or a connection to those vendors. If you guys need me, I'll be around. But thank you for tuning in. This is Joe from the Best Kratom Show, and until the next time, I'm out. Hit that like. I forgot to tell you, hit that like on the way out, and come back, share, and hit notifications.